Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Welcome, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Hello, everybody.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show focused on metaphysics and spirituality. And
It's not.
It's not?
I'm just kidding.
And we're broadcasting from CIVL on 101.7 FM from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. Now, as I was explaining, we are a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality, and every week we have a different topic to inspire you, the listeners. And quite often we have invited guests who have wonderful words of wisdom and even occasionally some fantastic techniques to share with us to help us in our lives. And today is no exception. Today we actually have a wonderful guest, and I'll tell you all about her. Her name is Sandra Biskind, and she's actually the author of a book called Codebreaker: Discover the Password to Unlock the Best Version of You. And what this book is about is it's based on the idea that there are unseen codes in your DNA that control your life, including how you repel or attract relationships, how you maintain or push away someone you love, how you feel about yourself, how much motivation you have, your energy level, how successful you allow yourself to be, and so on. And
that's a big one.
Yeah, and apparently in this book, there's a lot of information about how to neutralize those hidden codes, and so that you can transcend those limits. So let me tell you a little bit about the author, Sandra Biskind. She's a global thought leader, an international speaker, a spiritual mentor. She is a best-selling author of the book that we were just talking about. And she has a unique gift to identify and eradicate the unconscious programs that undermine success, and which actually have instantaneous results and amplify the client's ability to live freely and thrive. And she has a combination of business savvy, transformational leadership, and soul enrichment. And she's very down to earth. And her down-to-earth wisdom is coupled with multidimensional gifts. And these are what she uses to help create profound shifts within people. And so I could go on. There's so much that we could say about Sandra, but I think I'll pause there because I'm sure she'll tell us a bit more about herself as we go through our discussion. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Welcome.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, Dr. Leslie. It's just an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, it's delightful to be chatting with you. So I would love to talk more about the unconscious blocks lodged in the DNA. Tell us a little bit more about that, and also the neural pathways in the brain and how we get sort of caught in these unconscious loops of behavior and beliefs.
And then in 3 hours, we'll have a break.
This is a great way to start the show because, quite frankly, every human being is being run by their unconscious program. So if you think that nearly over 95% of the time, the decisions that we're making, the reasons why we say and do what we do, is coming from the unconscious. In other words, there's hidden programs, information locked in our DNA, and it is jumping up and being triggered by things that we hear, see, and do by other people, our environment. And as they're triggered, we start to react in a way that isn't our highest and best. We start to react in a way that starts to sabotage our relationships, sabotage our business, our ability to make the money that we want to make. You know, if you think about it, every single one of us is a perfect, divine, high-frequency being. And the only thing stopping us from living that reality are these unconscious programs. So if you can imagine that, the most important thing that we can do is actually transcend them. It's to clear them out, neutralize the emotional impact they have, so we're completely free of them. And then we start to make decisions and design our life the way we want it to look, rather than the way our unconscious is creating it.
Mm-hmm. So those two parts, the neurology, the neurological part, and
Yes.
the DNA part, I wanted to sort of ask a bit more about both of those. Because, so the neurological part, I imagine, and you can expand on this, a lot of that programming is happening as a baby and a young child, as the brain develops and the influences that they are exposed to. Whereas the DNA, and again, I'm sure you can expand on this, at least part, that's an ancestral thing. And depending on what your belief about the quantum nature of DNA, it can be a past life thing, and even, galactic thing. So give us your take on both of those things and the origins of those programs.
We'll love it. Like, from my experience, and that's just from my own empirical research and working with thousands and thousands of people around the world. And that is, the DNA is definitely, I mean, for me, it's definitely multidimensional. It's been handed down from our ancestors, our past lives, present, future lives. It is a galactic thing, where there is a oneness to all life. And so if you think about it, there's even a world consciousness in our DNA as well. So we're being affected by everything around us. And the brain is simply a processing unit. And if you think about it as a processing unit, it makes it a lot easier to understand what's happening. And that is that as a processing unit, we can go in, we can rewrite the software, we can undo programs that don't serve us anymore, like spam and cookies, and we have the power and the ability over the processing unit, and the DNA as well, by the way. And both of them react to a particular frequency of light and energy, and both of them react to a particular language. And it was Grigorov, there were these Russian scientists who've done amazing research in this area. And what they found was that the DNA that Western scientists thought were junk DNA, like 90% were junk DNA. Can you imagine anything in these bodies being junk for a start? I certainly can't. And they were saying, no, this is not junk DNA. This actually is DNA that responds to language and light and frequency. And they worked out how to use that, and that's exactly where the process that my husband and I came up with, this process where we're on a particular frequency that is the frequency of that DNA, and that we're saying the right words that the DNA needs to hear to release the information and to be reprogrammed. And I don't know if I'm allowed to blow your mind or not, but yesterday or the day before, I started doing something very, very new and very exciting. And I had some private clients who their processing unit was missing a beat. In other words, they were feeling mentally depressed, very anxious. One of them had even been in hospital for anxiety and mental depression. And during the call, I was actually guided to go into the processing unit, and I could literally see, because I'm a psychic, I could see inside the brain. I could actually see the synapses, I could see the neurons, I could see it all. I could see where they were working, where they weren't working, and I simply used this energetic white light enlightening to go in and activate the parts of the brain that had, kind of lost its ability to work for her, and deactivate the parts that were no longer serving her. She actually went like this and had a headache immediately as I was doing it. And then after I'd finished the session, it was like, oh, and she said that her brain was almost like it was vibrating and it was feeling different, and she was feeling happier. Mm-hmm. So I tried it again yesterday, and another client, the same results exactly. Now, this is early days, But the fact is that on an energetic level, because we're energetic beings, we can actually energetically and spiritually transform our own processing unit and the information that we're running and completely transform our life. And if you think about it, there's so much suffering on this planet. And if you actually understand that it is coming from our own unconscious, that we are the writers, we're the directors, we're the star, we're the casting directors of our own life. And so we're writing this script depending on our programs from past lives, from all over, from conditioning, from ancestors, and we're giving it to everybody because that's the energetic frequency that we're on. Mm-hmm. And people are going, oh, you mean you want me to abuse you? Oh, you mean you don't think you're good enough? Oh, you mean you don't think you deserve love? And we're not saying it, but we're vibrating. We're vibrating. Yes, that's it. We're vibrating at a frequency that is saying it. And it's not even, it's not our fault because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
So once you uncover that unconscious program, you delete that information out of the DNA. The processing unit now is processing entirely different information, and your life takes an instant turn. I mean, I'm working with people who have spent 15 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars on healing, and in 1 hour session, it's just over. And that's why this work is so phenomenal, and that's why we wanted to share it with the world. And quite frankly, that's really the reason why we wrote Codebreaker, because for people who can't invest what it takes to work with us one-on-one or in a group setting, for $27 you can get Codebreaker and you can go through the system and start transforming those areas of your life.
Especially people that are having issues like with seeing psychologists, psychiatrists, and the way psychologists and psychiatrists work, when you have issues, they got to go back and find the source of the issue, and they got to go and talk, and it's months, and it's weeks, and it's years, and nobody gets healed because it's not about healing. It's just about re-stimulating the negative feelings that you've had your whole life, as opposed to altering how you think about certain issues. You don't have to know what the issues are in order to know that you're not happy and that you want to change how you feel about things.
That's right. So, Corey, what you just said was really important because what happens in conventional therapy, and they do some brilliant work, by the way, with some great benefits, but they're still
definitely
on a conscious level. They haven't gone into the unconscious to the core. So until you get to the core reason, all you're dealing with is symptoms. Unhappiness is a symptom of something in your unconscious, and it might not even be from this lifetime. Not being able to make the money, not being able to be successful, not being able to have the love of your life. They're only symptoms. And if you're only working on the conscious mind, then you'll be still doing the surface stuff, and you could spend this whole lifetime going there and maybe feeling much better about yourself, but you haven't transformed the core belief, and you're still going to be bringing it through in your next lifetime.
Money is an interesting thing, and I've noticed with people, myself, I had a set point of $50,000 at one point. When I would hit $50,000 in profit on a house versus money in the bank, I'd get hit and I'd lose it. And I started watching people.
Whoa, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, and people have a set point. They don't believe, they don't believe that on a subconscious level that they're worth more than this set point. And I used to train salespeople. And when I train a salesperson, of course, those salespeople are, what are your monthly goals? What are your annual goals and things like that, right? And it's very funny. A salesperson they're all about money, right? And make as much money as you possibly can, but that's not true. What happens with them is they'll set a goal. Say their goal is $10,000 in sales, in commission this month, right? And they go out this month and they make $10,000. They're happy, everything's wonderful. Next month they go out and they make $15,000. And they're really happy. and this is marvelous. They're amazing. You know what happens the next month? They go out and they only make 5 or 7. And at the end of the year, they're plus or minus 5% of their income. Because subconsciously, they said, oh, gee, I made an extra $5,000. I don't have to work as hard this month. But it's subconscious. It's not even a conscious level. They have to break that barrier of a set point. So I never trained salespeople with goals. I always said intentions, and set those intentions high. Go for the
salespeople. I'm sure you do this, but if you actually forget the money, you tell them what you're doing is helping people. This product is helping people, and actually set their intention that they're helping people.
Exactly.
So the more they help people, the more rewarded they get. Then forget the money, then it doesn't worry. But your set point is very clear and very interesting. A lot of people have money blocks and they don't even know they're there. During one of our live 3-day weekends, I had a real estate agent here, and he said, oh, look, business is not working for me at the moment. He got up, it was his turn, I gave him a correction. I actually discovered a core block and corrected it out for him, and it was lunchtime. An hour and a half later, he came back in the room and he said, no, this cannot be real. He said, I just got 2 firm offers on 2 multi-million-dollar homes in that 1 hour at lunch. He said, what happened? And it was like, what happened was you no longer had the belief that you don't deserve money, that having money is evil, that people who are powerful and have money are greedy and they abuse people. Like all of these, there's so many programs around money, and the minute you take them out of your system, the system's freed up, your energy's changed, and it's like you're like a magnet to people. This is the thing with money. I had if you want to forex your business, if you really want to make money on a level that you can't even imagine, you have to get rid of those programs. One of my clients was a New York Times bestselling author, and she rang me just before she was about to go in to pitch another book. And she said, I'm feeling really anxious about this. I'm not sure. There's a lot riding on this. I really need this book. I really need them to take it on. It's a brand new subject. And I said, okay. So we went through the whole marketing of it. We made sure that was clear. I completely corrected out where the anxiety and fear was coming from in her unconscious. 3 hours later, she rang me up and she said, oh, you will not believe this. I just got $1 million offer for this book, and that is unheard of in the publishing industry at the moment. And I said to her, well, what did you think you would get? She said, well, I thought I might have got 250,000 if I was lucky. She said, but I got $1 million and you did that. And I laughed and I said, no, you did that because you showed up as the best version of you on such a high frequency, having done your homework with the marketing, that they were just compelled to work with you. They wanted whatever you were offering.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that story. Listeners, you are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and it's time for a break. We've been talking to our guest, Sandra Biskind, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello again.
And with our guest today, Sandra Biskind, and she's the author of a book called Codebreaker, Discover the Password to Unlock the Best Version of Yourself. And we're talking about reprogramming the unconscious mind and clearing and removing energy patterns in the DNA that lock us into limited ways of manifesting and limited ways of living our lives. And before the break, I was really enjoying you talking about the healings that you did on those couple of clients. And we should definitely exchange notes, because I've been doing that same kind of work, working with people's brains and working with the limits in the analyzers of their brains energetically. And so that's fantastic to hear that, there's other people out there doing that. So yeah, let's exchange notes after the radio show, because
look, yeah. Dr. Leslie, this is the energy medicine of the future, which is now. This is the reason why you're doing it and I'm doing it, and I'm sure there are other people working on this energetic level, is because this is the information that's being downloaded onto the planet right now to help you.
Completely is, isn't it? I'm sure we could talk at length, because in the last 18 months, I've had a bunch of downloads about how to work with the DNA as well. So it's definitely starting to be uploaded and be practiced and all of that. Yeah. So that's wonderful. Now, one of the things you said that in the way that you do your work, you are, now correct me if I misunderstood, so you come at it from a high vibration, but I think you said a vibrational match to the DNA. So I wanted to know more about that. And I also wanted to say, I would believe that each individual's DNA has its own unique signature.
Exactly. That's why I call the sessions that I do with my private clients soul signature sessions, because each soul is evolving at its own pace. And one of the theories that we put through in Codebreaker is that your soul is being hijacked by the ego mind and these unconscious programs. And so the soul actually is almost not evolving whilst ever we're hooked into these programs. When the soul evolves is when it is free to choose the divine mind, a whole nother code. So we're looking at, like, just imagine that we all live by codes, which, scientists and philosophers agree that we all live by codes. And, there could be 8 billion codes on the planet. However, really they break down to 2. That's love and fear. Yeah. Right? And in Codebreaker, we reveal, it's called Discover the Password. So what happens is there's a password that we were downloaded and given from source. And the password, an acronym for this password is platinum, which I'm going, no, don't. Platinum, everybody's got platinum, right?
It's a high vibration. It's a high vibration, though. It's a high vibration.
The fact is, a number of things. First of all, platinum is the highest vibration color apart from pure white light. And it's the most precious metal. But platinum, we were told, stands for the highest frequency beingness states of who we are, which is peace, love, awareness, trust, integrity, neutrality, unity, and mindfulness. If you think that that's a perfect octave that this password is giving us to live by, and the system is so simple and effective in the way it changes and aligns us to the frequency of our DNA, right? What we're doing is we're actually changing the frequency of the DNA, because when you master those 8 high frequency beingness states, you're oscillating at a very, very different energetic frequency field. And so everything changes around you. However, it's just not enough to go there, because remember, the unconscious is running our show. So what we want to do is master the core blocking frequencies to them. And for instance, the core blocking frequency to peace is unforgiveness. Now, if you've got someone in your life that you haven't forgiven, you are not going to know peace. In fact, if you've got someone in your life you haven't forgiven, you're not going to live a platinum state of mind, because unforgiveness is one of the biggest low frequency states there is on this planet. It's the reason why people go to war. It's the reason why people hate. It's the reason why people judge, because we haven't forgiven ourselves, we haven't forgiven each other. Just think, the very first chapter in the book is about you've got to forgive. In fact, we're doing a 5-day challenge in September, and it's the whole challenge is going to be about peace and forgiveness for the whole 5 days. That's how important this is. So if you think that you are upset with somebody and you haven't forgiven them, that is not only taking up rent-free space in your mind, but it is also opening you up to cancer, high blood pressure, Crohn's disease, unhappy relationships, like all sorts of things happen. And that, by the way, was proven in a Harvard study where they said holding a grudge can kill you.
Totally.
Right. And so if you think about our DNA, we are in control of that too. So the frequency that the DNA is on is depending on the information in it. So we're either diminishing life, or we're activating and creating a vitality life, depending on our thoughts. Our thoughts are that powerful. So Codebreaker is a whole mind training system to align us so that we can be in a frequency that serves us and, quite frankly, serves humanity. Because even if one of us shows up on that frequency, if every one of us shows up like that, then that's kind of like a ripple effect that goes out, and it does affect everyone else, just like the low frequencies affect us too.
So what keeps people stuck in the low vibrational rates, and what's your methodology or process for releasing them from it?
Yeah.
Do they have to do anything, or is it just a case of receiving and attuning to a different frequency?
No, we have to do the work.
Usually you do, but...
We have to do the work. We did the work to get where we are.
Yeah.
We have to do the work to undo it and to transform it, right? Mm-hmm. So, we've created a process which is in the book called the quantum neutrality process. And it consists of 4 parts. And that is attuning to the frequency of your choice. Like Daniel and I are always attuned to unconditional love. Mm-hmm. That's the frequency of our choice. That's where we choose to live. We deliberately choose a divine mind code. The minute we slip out of that or have a slip in our magnificence, we put our hand up and say, okay, what's the program? What do we need to correct to get back into our heart, to get back on that level, right? So, attuning yourself to the frequency of your choice. Inquiry, deep inquiry. And that's really asking yourself powerful questions that change your state, and doing meditations and guided visualizations where you access your unconscious, mm-hmm. and you can access information that you would not otherwise have access to. Then once you have that information, the third part of that is corrections, where we're correcting and neutralizing the hidden programs that you've discovered. Of course, when I'm working with my private clients, I do that for them. And in live events, I take them into the meditations where they discover it on a quantum level. So we correct out the emotional charge so they're completely free from it. And then the last one is the activation and transmission of energy. Mm-hmm. And that's where we put our hands on people's heads. We change the way the brain functions. Mm-hmm. This is just so exciting. I mean, we worked with a scientist in Sydney where that was proven. And I just had a woman who was deeply into medical and serious research. And she had a brain scan before she came to our last event. And her brain was at 60. And she just said 60. I didn't know what that was, 60 megahertz, 60, whatever that was. She said it wasn't that good for her age. And she went and had another brain scan after the weekend, and it was at 85. And the doctors were going, what happened? What did you do? Because the brain was functioning at a much higher level after those 3 days. So you can see that the transmissions of energy and activations are really important. And I'm actually giving you a transmission of energy now as we're talking. I don't know if you can feel it or not, but whenever we look at anyone, whenever we work with anyone, we actually don't have to put our hands on our head. Our intention is always for your highest and best good to be realized. And that in itself is an activation. So even your listeners now, if they really tune in, they'll actually go, whoa, hang on a minute. Yeah, there is something going on here for me. Yeah. I am feeling lighter, different, happier. And it's because they're on a different frequency now.
No, well, I do feel that the frequency of this interview is a very high vibrational frequency. I noticed it with different people that we're interviewing, you know. We had one lady doing Lemurian light language, and that was such a beautiful, that the energy vibration was super high. So I'm absolutely noticing the very high energy set point. Yes. So neutrality.
Yes.
I was interested in what you were going to say about neutrality. And I'm sure as a psychic, you know this, but I think it's useful for the listeners as well, because one of the best ways to be neutral is to seat your consciousness in the center of your head, in your pineal gland, in the center of your sixth chakra. That puts you in a completely non-judgmental, neutral position, above the emotions, apart from the intellect, a place where you can sit consciously as spirit and operate your reality consciously as spirit.
Beautiful. I'm going to use that. I haven't heard of that. I love it. So what you're saying is focusing your attention here.
The very, very center of your head.
Yes.
Which is where your pineal gland.
Like in the brain.
Right, where the pineal gland is.
Got it.
Yeah, it's the seat of consciousness. It's the seat of the soul. And I use that all the time. I teach that to all my students. And so, if you like, that would be my tool for helping people to gain seniority over the ego and the emotions and the intellect, because people get stuck in their intellect.
That's right. They get stuck in the mind.
Yes.
And the mind doesn't serve us. That's the whole problem. You know, that's really beautiful. One of the things that I've found is that people can go through things like that, and in that moment, they actually come to that beautiful neutral still point, which is the aim of the game, right?
Yeah.
Because another word for neutrality is enlightenment. It's where you're not affected by the negative and you're not affected by the positive. You're actually not attached
exactly
to anything. So attachment is the frequency blocker to neutrality. But the only thing I would say is that when they're no longer just focusing there, the unconscious and the ego mind has a habit of leaping up and slapping us around.
Absolutely. And that's why you need to do the work.
That's right. So if you can find the core as to what that is and delete that, then go into there. You've actually got this double whammy happening where you're not going to be we call it trigger happy.
Yes.
We want people to be trigger free.
Yes.
And if people say, oh, you've got to think positive, you've got to do the affirmations, you've got to do all of this stuff. And I'm going, well, listen, yeah, that's how you're being taught, and that's what the law of attraction teaches you. But they haven't taught you that if you have unconscious programs in there sabotaging you, you can be positive till you're blue in the face. It will make no difference.
They're still there underlying all this positive self-talk that you're doing.
So I had a friend of mine one time tell me, you know, I was having some money issues many years ago, and you know, I was owing a lot of money on credit cards and things like that, and I was very depressed about it. I spoke to my buddy about it. He said, Corey, I could give you $1 million today. You still wouldn't be happy about it. You could pay your bills off. He says, your attitude towards anything has got nothing to do with the thing that you're having the attitude towards. It's got to do with how you react to that stimulus at that point in your life. So if you want to get over the pain of owing money, the negativity, because I was taught to always pay your bills and things like that, just change how you feel about the money. You know,
that's right.
You feel about money, period. And
Corey, you've just opened the door. I have to tell you about a very good friend of mine, Ken Honda, who is like the Zen millionaire of Japan. He's sold about 8 million books in Japan. He's just launched in the USA and sold over 120,000 copies straight away. A book called Happy Money. Now you have to get it, and I'd love the listeners to get it. I mean, apart from Codebreaker, discover the password to unlock the best version of you. Happy Money is a gorgeous little book, and it's actually giving you a whole nother perspective in relationship to money. And it's so much fun, and it's so beautifully written. I think that that's going to really change the way people look at money. Like money comes into us now and we go, we love our happy money, and money's coming to us from everywhere, and we're locking it in, and of course we've cleared out the stuff that would stop that from happening, but happy money is a great first step too. I think you're going to love that book, Corey.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. I was muted there for a second.
Yes. So, okay, so now let's recap what you told us earlier in this segment. So you choose the frequency of choice, whether it's love, peace, gratitude, you choose the frequency of choice. And then you become inquisitive about yourself and your system. Am I getting it right here?
You inquire into what you're feeling.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you do corrective techniques to...
Which is in the book, by the way.
Yep.
Yep.
And then there's an activation and a transmission of energy as well.
Yes. And what we've discovered is that everybody reading the book is getting that transmission of energy just from holding it.
Fantastic. That all the best books are like that, aren't they?
Yes.
So we'll be back, listeners. We've got a few more ads that we have to do, and then we'll be back talking to Sandra Biskind about energy frequency and more. Welcome back, listeners, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey and our guest, Sandra Biskind. Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality, and today we are talking about actually such a lot. We're talking about such a lot, and we're practicing keeping our energetic frequency at a very high frequency, and we hope, listeners, that you can feel that vibration in this broadcast and feel yourself lifting up as we're talking, because I must say, Sandra, I've definitely felt we've been climbing up a little bit as we go along, and that's just
Without doubt.
fantastic.
It is.
Yes. So one of the things that I'd understood from your work is that there are 4 key questions that you get your clients to ask themselves that are really super helpful in them being able to make this transition and let go of their limits. Would you be able to share what those questions are?
Yeah, I'll just give you a bit of background to them to
Sure.
make you understand, make your listeners understand that, not make them, but aware of how powerful they are. And that is that when I was 27, I had had a decade of pain and suffering. I had almost died. My 41-year-old mother died. I had another surgery. I married a man who ended up being an abusive relationship, and by the age I'd also started a chain of fashion boutiques, and that was a decade that was. And at 27 I got up the courage to leave it and left everything bar one of the businesses, so I had a job. And when I went into my business, my staff came up to me and said, listen, we're walking on eggshells around you. We don't know if you're going to be happy or sad or angry or a bitch. And I was like, whoa, I realized I was not a platinum being at that stage. I was no awareness whatsoever of how I was affecting, and my emotions were affecting the people around me, especially my staff. I was oblivious, which is the low frequency blocker to awareness. So instead of going into, we call it the no BJC rule, instead of going into a victim mentality and blaming, complaining, and saying that it was not my fault, I realized, which I could have done because I was out of a painful marriage, divorce, ill health, the whole thing, right? So instead, I sat in the car outside my business every morning before I walked in, and I asked myself these 4 questions. Now, what they did was they actually changed my frequency so dramatically that I was now in control of my emotions instead of my emotions in control of me. So that when I walked into my business now, my staff were happy to have me there. In fact, clients were coming out of the woodwork because there's an energetic field that when you're in that space that attracts business and attracts people. And my suppliers who'd been ringing me for money absolutely knew that I was in such a place of integrity that they could trust me. There's the platinum again. So what I asked myself was, well, okay, what am I feeling? And I was like, wow, I'm feeling alone, angry, upset, unsupported. How am I going to get through this? What was I focused on? So the next question is, what am I focused on? And that was, well, I'm focused on the fact that I've got suppliers ringing me every half an hour for money in the middle of my boutique. I'm embarrassed. I don't have it. It's painful. I don't even want to be, I don't want to be at work. And then the question number 3 was, okay, what do I want to feel? And that was an easy one. I wanted to feel happy about being in my business again. I just wanted to feel happy, full stop. And number 4 was, what focus will serve that? So remember, this is a mind training system. It's a deep inquiry. So what focus will serve that? And I'm thinking that, I'm going, wow, I have to be incredibly grateful and love the fact that I created this business, that I have brilliant staff, that I've got incredible customers, that I have the wherewithal and the power to move beyond this place that I'm in right now, and even love and be grateful for my suppliers. So when I walked through the door in this different frequency and the suppliers rang me, I would say to them, I don't have it, but whatever I make this week, you're going to get a part of it, and which is what I did. And so really everything changed. I was below 0 in that business at the age of 27 at that stage. 3 years later, I was a self-made millionaire on the books. You know, I had a $500,000 apartment. I mean, this is like 40 years ago. And so I had really changed everything. And then these questions helped me through, like going through the next financial crisis, where I, again, you know, lost everything. The questions were there. It kept me stable. It kept me in a place where people still trusted me, where I could trust myself. And so we've taught these questions to business people and people all over the world, and they've had absolutely similar results to that.
One of the things I noticed while you were telling your story around those questions was, one of the things that happened was you let go of resistance. Because it's in those low vibrational states where everything seems wrong and, you know, against us. One of the things that we're doing is we're resisting, and when we're resisting, the energy is not in flow, is it? And so somehow along those 4 questions in your journey that you were describing, you went from being locked up in resistance to no resistance. Hey, I don't have the money, but whatever I get this week, I'll share with you.
Yes.
And I think that's an important lesson as well, is like, what you resist persists. When you're in effort and you're in resistance, then you're out of alignment with the universal flow. Exactly.
And, you know, when the ego mind has control of us and we're not living as a platinum being, showing up as the best version of who we are in resistance. We're in resistance to the incredible power and wonder of who we are. And the fact is that we all have access to this divine guidance. We all can tune in and be given the guidance that we need and the answers that we need in any given moment. But you have to actually free yourself up to hear it. And that's why transformation is so important. I would say there is nothing more important that a human being can do as to, you know, getting clear of the unconscious, being absolutely certain that there's spiritual life and that transformation is the most important thing, because once they do that, everything else starts to fall into place. If you do it the other way around and you're a human doing, and you think that the more education, the more this, the more that, you've got it backwards. You know, it's not going to work. You actually have to work on the spiritual level first, and then everything else falls into place.
The egoic mind is, I love the egoic mind. It's so impressive, because no matter how many times you go white, it'll go black. No matter how many times you go black, it'll go back to white, you know?
It's a master.
And it just constantly does it. And it does it for a reason, because we need to protect ourselves, or we used to, you know, and this is a system of self-protection. It, you know, like, oh, you're going to go out hunting? Look out of the cave before you go out. You know, like, even though you're feeling secure and you're the biggest, you know, the biggest mother in the whole universe. It doesn't matter. The egoic mind will always try to put you in a place where you have to watch what's going on very drastically. But the problem is people don't understand this egoic mind controls them, and they go into this negativity. And even then, the ego mind will say, "Well, no, don't be negative." But I am, like stuff like that. And the more you do, one of my mentors used to say, you become a crap magnet, and it just keeps coming. You have to you have to be careful with that, because if you're standing next to somebody who's a crap magnet, what's going to happen is you're going to get some of the residual crap, and it's true. You have to be very careful on how you allow yourself to be manipulated by other people, because we can as human beings, we're so easily manipulated.
You're actually talking about the reptilian brain and what we did for fight and flight originally. But unfortunately, the reptilian brain and the ego mind are still working now.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We have to transcend that. That's why Codebreaker is a mind training program. You also hit on something else really important there, Corey, and that is that...
I did? Did you hear that, Leslie?
Yeah, because for me, one of the important things that I feel that Daniel and I are good at and that we do well is that we provide a safe spiritual haven, or a haven for the soul to grow and transcend in other people, like your soul family. So we create groups and events where like-minded people can grow together. In other words, you're not going to be standing next to a crap magnet when you're in one of our events. Yes, people are going through their stuff, but they're there to transcend it. They're not there to stay in it. Like, they're not resistant to change, like Dr. Leslie.
So here's a question.
Yes.
Because I think that this is so often the case, that people go to a workshop and the energy in the workshop is amazing and it supports their transformation. And then they go back home and there's a crap magnet at home, right?
Yeah, that's right. So what they've got to do is remember that they gave that crap magnet their script. So they're being a crap magnet for a reason. And the reason is something to do with their own unconscious. The minute they let go of that reason and that core program, that crap magnet will no longer be hooked into the game. It won't need to read the script anymore. It could even disappear, or you will simply no longer be affected by it, because you're on a totally different frequency now, where you can laugh and smile and go, hang on, I'm just neutral to that. You're no longer trigger happy. And that's what we teach people. After a live event or an online program, and after you've been immersed in that frequency, it's really important to read the books. It's important to do the programs. We put out massive amounts of free meditations and everything to keep people on that frequency so that they can stay involved. In 2020, I'm super excited. We're about to launch our very first 12-month coaching certification program, where for 12 months they actually get to spend every second week with us somehow, either live, online, calls, however that's going to look and feel. Not only are they going to transform their own lives with like-minded people, with their spiritual family, but they're then going to end up with a coaching certification program that they can use in their own business to take this very unique level of coaching and use it in the world to help other people. So I'm excited, because again, that's what we're talking about. It's, don't just do one live weekend and think you're done.
Exactly.
I remember at 27 years old, when I just left my husband, I said to myself, okay, I'll give myself 1 year and I'll do every spiritual workshop and everything that comes my way, and I'll just say yes for 1 year, and then I'm done. Well, 40 years later, I'm still not done, right? I'm never going to be done. And that's the wonder of this transformation, is that I can see that the person that I am today and that my husband is today, we are very, very different souls and beings to what we were even 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago.
It would be very funny, wouldn't it, to go back and meet yourself 30 years ago?
I would have to pat her on the back and tell her everything's going to be okay. Don't you worry about a thing. You've got this.
It's really interesting, because life never stops going, and learning is so important. That's why Dr. Leslie and I love doing these interviews with thought leaders, because we live a little bit of a reclusive life because we do the radio show, and Leslie works hard with her clientele, and I do some other supportive things, but we work from the house, so we don't get out into the world all that much. But when the world comes into us, we just love that reactivation that it gives us, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and look, we all need it. If you think unity is one of the high frequency aspects of platinum, and that's about having that feeling of oneness and that you belong. And a lot of the reasons why people are anxious and depressed is because they don't feel like they belong, that they're not worthy, that there's nothing for them. Yeah. And there's that feeling when you're in unity that everything is exactly as it should be. You are one with all life, one with God, one with your heart. And we know that the ego mind is a master of judge, because you don't want to judge yourself as being wrong, and you're not jealous that somebody else is doing something better or different or more, because it's actually you doing it. And I don't know, for me, I know that that's a right out there way of thinking. Truly, that's how a platinum being thinks, and that's how a perfect divine being thinks.
That's wonderful, yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And we did have
invigorated.
We did have a connection problem there, and I'm not sure if, because I got kicked out of the.
So did I, yeah.
And so I'm not sure everything that you said.
No.
In that last part got recorded. So maybe we should.
Could you?
Do you want to check it and see if it is there?
I can't check it till we've finished.
Okay.
But we can do a little bit of extra talking, and Corey can splice it in.
Yeah, I'll
if it's gone. So let's ask you one more question, and you can cut and paste it a little bit. There are two things that stood out. These very funny terms that I read you use in your book, and I've no idea what they're referring to at all. I need to ask. That is, what's an ego puppy and what's a cosmic kitten?
Oh, I love that. So if you really read the book and read it, you'll find out that what we're doing is we're having a bit of fun. Look, the key to enlightenment is lighten up. Now, we're in the New Age many, many years ago, people used to say, kill the ego, right? And we go, no. This is about enlightenment and wholeness. It's about bringing everything into the oneness of all life. So just use your imagination and think of your ego mind as an ego puppy that you've just got. Now, you're not going to let it piddle poop and run amok all over your house or you forever. You are definitely going to get it trained or get somebody in to help train it. And by doing that, the home then becomes, that's okay. Now you've got this loving service dog around you and loyal friend. But until you've trained it, it is, a junkyard dog. Yeah. And it's going to upset you, and it's going to piddle and poop over everybody else around you as well. So we go through each chapter, in the 8 chapters of Platinum, we talk about what the ego puppy's doing in peace, love, awareness. And so that's beautiful. And then we're saying, are we lucky? Not only did we get an ego puppy like everybody, so often I'll have a client ring me up and say, oh my God, I really had to keep a tight leash on my ego puppy this week. And I'd say, okay, what did your husband do? And she'd tell me what her husband did. It's a fun way of saying, listen, I'm messing up, or I've said something. If I say something to Daniel and he looks at me and I go, oh, was that my ego puppy? And he goes, yes. And it kind of dissolves the tension immediately. And Cosmic Kitten is that part of us that is the divine mind. That is where we're tuning in and getting the guidance. And we're saying, okay, between the two of them, they kind of balance everything out.
I love that. That's fantastic. It just and it makes it less serious, doesn't it? It makes it more playful.
Yes. It's a serious conversation transformation because there's so much suffering. But when you bring a bit of fun to it, really important, then all of a sudden you've got a lighter, higher frequency that you're working with.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the show, I said, we need about 3 hours, and I was right, because we're just about out of time here.
Yes. Listeners, you've been tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. And on this week's show, we've been talking to Sandra Biskind. And she has an enormous amount of wisdom, and we've only begun to just touch the surface. And we're so grateful for Sandra being on the show with us today and enlightening us and uplifting us to a platinum vibration.
Exactly. Yeah, get the book and use Codebreaker, because it's going to do that for everyone listening.
Actually, we should ask you to say how people can get a hold of you.
Sure. So the best way is to go to thebiskind's.com. So that's THEBISKINDS, thebiskind's.com, and you'll get more information about us, how to join us in our fabulous programs, and there's information about the book there too. So and lots of free, wonderful meditations and programs.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. We'll be back,
Thank
listeners.
you.
We'll be back, listeners, next week, same time, 7 o'clock.
Tuesday, 7 o'clock Pacific time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.